The off-season is officially halfway complete. It's never too early to talk Daytona. Several new entries were just announced. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove. I hope you're doing well. We're talking Daytona 500 today because, as reporter Dustin Albino notes, the offseason is officially more than halfway complete. The Clash is right around the corner, and the Great American Race will follow soon after. But before we can get to the latest NASCAR news and bring in an expert of sorts, the NASCAR industry is feeling burned out. I know a lot of y'all could probably care less about this topic because who isn't feeling burned out this time of year? But Pete Pistone sparked quite the conversation on social media yesterday when he posted, "Understand many Cup and even Xfinity teams are having a tough time filling positions internally, with burnout factor becoming more of a tangible challenge over the length of the season. One principal believes it's even reached the level of drivers not wanting to commit to a full season." Lots to unpack there. That last part, though, I believe there are very few drivers with full-time NASCAR opportunities who are just, willing to walk away, unless they're a lot older, like Eric Almirola maybe would be a great example. Veteran driver, he's had a solid career, he's made his money, he's got a bunch of young kids at home, he's stepping back to a part-time schedule, an Xfinity Series schedule in 2024. Someone in his position, it makes total sense. You've had a really good career already, why commit to 40 weekends of travel if you're just going to run 20th? But beyond just the drivers, many other members of the NASCAR industry, from mechanics to crew chiefs to team owners to photographers, all chimed in on this topic. And again, I understand that some of you out there don't want to hear NASCAR people complain about how hard their job is. But keep in mind, these are the people, this is the backbone that makes NASCAR happen on Sundays. If they are unhappy and the most talented are leaving the industry, that negatively impacts the on-track product. So I think it is worth briefly discussing. The biggest complaints I've seen, number one, the pay is not competitive when put up against the number of hours, the amount of weekends you're expected to travel. Matt Tifft explained that nicely in this post, saying, "The issue rising is for how long and intense the season is. There are fewer and fewer people who want to commit when you can have guaranteed time off and can see your family and have more home time with equal or better pay working for bigger corporations, dealerships, Amazon, etc." Basically, money is the number one issue. But the second issue that Alex Ripstein here points out is that working in NASCAR just isn't quite as fun as it used to be. Alex posted, "While there's a lot of stuff to be said regarding pay and schedules, a lot of it comes down to the rules not making it fun anymore. If you're at the shop, there's hardly anything you can do to make a difference to the cars anymore, which is like the main reason to work there." Great point. You can't play too many games with the next gen car these days, or else you risk getting leveled by a 120-point penalty. There have been a ton of threads on X, Reddit, wherever you went on social media yesterday, but those were, I think, the two largest points. And unfortunately, I don't think there's an easy solution in sight. The new media rights deal that just got signed pretty much ensures there will be 38 Cup race weekends a year for the foreseeable future. And the next gen car, while some modifications continue to be made, it's not going anywhere anytime soon either. 10, 15 years ago, when there was more money in the sport, there were more eyeballs on the sport, compensation was higher. But now the sport has been forced to downsize. Many are being asked to do more work for the same or even less pay. The number one solution to all these problems would be NASCAR just needs to get more popular. If there was a sudden influx of cash from media, sponsors, new manufacturers, etc., we could probably solve problem one for the most part. But without that boom, it's going to continue to be a grind that weeds out all but the most passionate racers. It's not all doom and gloom, I should point out. Joey Cohen from Legacy Motor Club took this opportunity to pitch his race team, suggesting his team is offering employees better benefits, more flexibility than some of his competitors. From what I hear, many of these newer teams, perhaps Legacy, Trackhouse for example, even 2311 Racing to some extent, they have managed to bend the traditional NASCAR team ownership model in a way that has attracted talented people to their side. So it's not all doom and gloom, but it is a difficult situation. One final thread I'd like to read to you, though, comes from Tommy Joe Martins, team owner, Alpha Prime Racing, NASCAR Xfinity Series. He was not too happy with the narrative he saw forming on social media yesterday. Let me just read you these few posts back to back. Wait, so you're telling me a millionaire-owned, manufacturer-backed team getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars per race pays higher wages and benefits than an independent team with half their budget coming from the prize money? Dude, that's so unfair. Might as well quit. The literal president of NASCAR says in a press conference, we know all the teams are losing money, and yet everyone is talking about how hard it is to get a pay raise? Like, maybe those things could be related. The whole sport is built around the teams being disposable. We're all doing the best we can here. We all want to pay fair wages and have enough people. If sponsors, drivers, agencies refuse to pay more money, and the costs for literally every part, piece, tire continually go up, how does that work out for any of us? But to compare our sport, to be clear, a sport, especially at the minor levels, to other industries is crazy. If you want to make money, there's plenty of jobs that'll pay you way more to do things you probably don't want to do. If you want to do this, you find a way. Whew, it is interesting to hear the difference between, as Tommy Joe Martins points out, a manufacturer-backed Cup Series team and an independent mid-pack Xfinity Series team. It's like living in two completely different worlds. To kind of wrap this conversation up, I understand that many teams just need people that are willing to do the work. But long term, if the most talented people continue to leave this industry, most passionate does not always equal most qualified. I hope the sport is able to retain more of these talented people who are also passionate about racing. But it sounds like overall the NASCAR industry is still not in a sustainable enough place for that to be possible. So just wanted to share some of those posts. Again, if you're on social media yesterday, you've probably read a number of these threads. It was everywhere, so I at least wanted to share it with you guys and chime in, give my 2 cents. Now I want to talk Daytona 500 because yesterday, Colleague Racing confirmed AJ Allmendinger will compete in the Great American Race, driving the number 16 Colleague Racing Chevrolet. This seems to confirm my theory I've had for a long time that Colleague is going to put a number of different drivers in that 16 car. They won't have just one full-time competitor. But this is exciting news. AJ Allmendinger, who had a good run in last year's Daytona 500, I think he finished inside the top 10. He's back to compete for the Harley J. Earl Trophy. That's exciting. And real quick, while we're sort of on the topic of silly season, I saw this post yesterday from Seriously Fast Motorsports, who's reporting Kaz Grala will race full-time for Rick Ware Racing next year. That's not confirmed, but if true, add Kaz Grala to the Daytona 500 entry list. This is the same guy who 2 years ago managed to get the money team into the show. Both the Rick Ware and Colleague entries we just discussed are chartered entries. Beard Motorsports is an open car. They do not have a guaranteed spot in next year's Daytona 500, and yesterday they announced that Anthony Alfredo will attempt to qualify for the Great American Race. This is a great choice, I believe. I'm a big fan of Anthony Alfredo, fast pasta, and he's especially slippery on super speedways. I think back a couple of years ago when he was with Our Motorsports, he was leading laps at super speedways consistently. Last year in the Xfinity Series with BJ McLeod Motorsports, he led 18 laps at the first Atlanta race. In the 78, that's very impressive. Cup Series obviously is another beast, but Beard Motorsports, the 62, is typically a very respectable entry. So Anthony Alfredo, someone to watch out for. Bob Pockrass, Fox Sports, yesterday reported he expects at least 4 or 5 open entries in this year's Daytona 500. Actually, it's more. He said, right now I'd say 5 to 7 open cars at Daytona. 78 McLeod, 60 Reagan, 62 Alfredo confirmed, 84 Johnson is expected, and Herbst is trying to put a deal together. Was with Front Row last year. 40 cars make the show, 36 are locked in, so if we get more than 4 open entries, someone's going home. That's going to add additional stakes to Thursday night's dual races. Now, I know it's really early, but I wanted to bring in a friend of mine who I consider to be sort of an expert in the NASCAR betting space. You may recognize him from the Garage Guys, but I wanted to talk about the early betting favorites as well as some long shots. Who are the value picks a little deeper in the 2024 Daytona 500 field?
I'm now joined by the one and only Dale Tanhardt, coming to us live from the Dale Center, as you can see. Dale, it's great to see you. How you doing, man? Thanks for being on.
Hey, good. Just getting ready for the holidays. I think it's been a fun off-season as a NASCAR fan. There's been a little bit of turmoil with the horsepower battle, but otherwise, I think it's been pretty relaxing. The season will be here before you know it, so we're doing pretty well over here.
Yeah, it's great to have you on. This is kind of new for Out of the Groove. Don't typically talk about odds, betting, but wanted to bring you in here to give us sort of an early look at next year's Daytona 500. I know we're still a couple months away, but right now, Dale, what are the opening odds sort of looking like?
Yeah, really no surprises. As we've seen over the past few years, your favorites typically stay the same when it comes to super speedway races, regardless of it being Daytona, Talladega, or Atlanta now as a mini super speedway.
Yeah.
But you're looking at Ryan Blaney as, at least on DraftKings, is a favorite all alone at 9-1. Other books like Caesars, BetMGM might have him at 10-1, 11-1, alongside Brad Keselowski, which is a guy that's never won the Daytona 500 and keeps shooting for that race that's eluded him for so long. And we know how good of a super speedway racer Brad Keselowski is. You saw what happened last year in 2022. He was so close to winning multiple super speedway races, and he's been really close in the Daytona 500. So he's rightfully so a co-favorite. And then alongside him, you're looking at guys like Chase Elliott, which I think could be somewhat of a surprise, but has gotten a lot of attention in the offseason purely because of the year he had in 2022. And he's won at Talladega a couple times. He's won a couple dual races at Daytona. The guy's a good super speedway racer, and he leads laps. And everybody's talking about Chase because it's all about the rebound here. How does he rebound? When does he rebound? And obviously, everybody wants to point towards the Daytona 500. So you're looking at him in that 11-1 range. William Byron is up there as well, which I think is a rightfully so line to a certain degree at 11-1, considering he's had a lot of bad luck at Daytona, a lot of DNFs.
Yeah.
He's run up front a lot. He's led laps. He's won at Daytona. He's won at Talladega. He's won at Atlanta, both years in its inception as a mini super speedway. So you're looking at William Byron there as well as an 11-1 guy. One guy that the books are respecting more in this co-favorite category is Chris Buescher. We talk about RFK with Brad Keselowski. Chris Buescher is a guy that went out in Daytona and won. He's run up front in a lot of these other super speedway races, been close to winning. And that RFK energy, man, they're expanding. They're bringing good, talented race car drivers to their program, whether it's full-time or part-time, and they're damn good at the super speedway. So Chris Buescher's a guy to look out for. And, of course, Denny Hamlin, a guy that's won multiple Daytona 500s, who could be considered the Pied Piper of super speedway racing in this generation, even though he hasn't found victory lane in the Gen 7 era at a super speedway. So that's mainly who we're looking at. And then you go down the board with Joey Logano, former Daytona 500 winner, who kind of had an off season in 2023. Kyle Larson's up there, which it's the name Kyle Larson. He's not a great super speedway racer, but because of that name, they throw him up there. And I think they also consider how fast Hendrick Motorsports is in qualifying as well. So those are mainly your guys that we're talking about as favorites, co-favorites leading into the Great American Race.
It's interesting that the first 4 or 5 names you mentioned there have not won the Daytona 500. Your Blaney's, your Keselowski's, your Buschers, your Byrons, your Elliott's. It took until your 6th name, Denny Hamlin, finally a Toyota made the list. Dale, I want to ask you, do you think the Toyotas are being maybe undervalued slightly because there's more of them now? You got Legacy Motor Club, so there's going to be, I think, at least 8 Toyotas in the Daytona 500 field, and they got that new front end that should allow them to push a little better. Are you surprised at all that there aren't more Toyotas maybe a little higher up on the list?
Yeah, I think Bubba Wallace is the one that sticks out to me. He finally had an off year at the super speedways, even though he was a half lap away from winning at Talladega if he didn't make one bad move. But Bubba Wallace in a Toyota has been one of the more consistent super speedway racers in the field over the past 3 years. You can go back to his Richard Petty days when he finished runner-up in the Daytona 500, had several other good runs at Daytona and Talladega, and has been close to winning at Atlanta as well. He's the guy that sticks out to me because the books are treating him kind of, I think, unfairly and giving us a fair opportunity at 20-1 on DraftKings Sportsbook. That's kind of where we're trending on other books as well. that 18-1 to 20-1 range. Bubba Wallace has been close to winning this race multiple times. He's won at Talladega. He's been close to winning other super speedway racers throughout his short career. I guess I say short, but time flies. It's actually been like 6 or 7 years, which is crazy to think about. But no, Bubba Wallace is very underrated here, and I am interested in seeing what that Toyota does with the new body. I know there's been some criticism. I think it looks really good. I think the Toyota now actually looks like a race car instead of just a sedan Camry, off the street. So I think it looks racy. I think it looks like a car that could push better, and maybe, who knows if it's going to be an aerodynamic advantage or not. But Bubba Wallace in a Toyota sitting around 20-1, I think is a great bet before you get to February.
Yeah, he's been runner-up in this race a couple of times, so going for one position better. Speaking of sort of dark horses, find me a value pick, Dale. Is there anyone besides Bubba that just jumps out at you that maybe fans can get some good value on here early on?
Yeah, we talk about the RFK energy. I mean, they've really grown the potential superstardom of Chris Buescher. Some would argue that he hit that peak in 2023 with the amount of wins he had, including a win at Daytona in August. But I'm looking at their, not a satellite car, but their third car that they're bringing, the number 60 team. A very cool thing. It reminds people of the Project 91 stuff that Trackhouse is doing. But they're putting David Reagan behind the wheel. And this is a guy that ran top 10 twice in Rick Ware Racing Equipment before they had a big technical alliance. They may have had an SHR alliance, which over the past couple of years, that hasn't meant much considering how SHR has been competitively. But I think David Reagan, his strong suit is super speedways. And I don't think this guy would hop in a race car after his post full-time career and not think that he has a chance of running in the top 10 or running in the top 5. Some books don't even have David Reagan listed right now in their odds, but Caesar Sportsbook has David Reagan at 100-1 right now. And I think that's a great underdog bet. I mean, you got to keep an eye on what happens in qualifying and in the duels because it is a team that could miss the race, but most reputable sports books will treat that as a void if you bet it right now, and you'll get that money back. I can't speak for all of them, but most of them do. And I think David Reagan with a super speedway resume, winning at Talladega in a front row car, Roush won at Daytona 2011, should have won the Daytona 500 that year too, actually. And what he did in a Rick Ware race car is very valuable in betting on David Reagan in the 2024 Daytona 500. So talk about Brad, talk about Buescher. Keep an eye on David Reagan because I think the price is pretty nice. And I'm really looking forward to top 5, top 3s, top 10 lines of David Reagan once we get closer to February.
Great point. Yeah, hard to disagree with that. I feel like RFK was in position to win this race last year. One of their cars was going to victory lane. They were just outnumbered at the end by the Chevrolet. So now they've got a third horse in their stable. That's going to be one to watch for sure. Dale, can you tell fans a little more about what you're working on, where people can find you?
Yeah, just follow Dale Tanhardt on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all the social media platforms. I'm doing a lot in the iRacing world during the off season, having a lot of fun with that. And the betting stuff will continue. I have a live show called Dale Center, as you mentioned, and I think you can see it behind me on my little banner right there. Viewer discretion is advised sometimes, but Dale Center is my betting staple that I give long-term video form analysis on all 3 NASCAR National Series throughout the year, every single week, and going to continue that in 2024. So really exciting. Look, and we're talking about the off season here. Me and you talked a little bit before we started recording. It's a holiday season. I'm enjoying the off season. I got my Harry Gant Christmas tie right here.
Oh, that's cool.
Just to be more festive for this occasion. So Merry Christmas to everybody as we get closer to Christmas and the new year. And I know we're all really excited to get to 2024, and the holidays will help us get there.
Absolutely. Well, a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to you as well, Dale. Thank you so much for being on the show, and we'll talk to you a bit more in 2024.
Awesome. Thank you, Eric.
Appreciate Dale joining the show. If you want to follow him on social media or check out any of his live streams, you can click any of those top links down in the description below. Remember to always bet responsibly. That is going to do it for this episode, y'all. We covered a ton of ground, tried something a little different. I appreciate you tuning in. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. We talk NASCAR all the time. And a huge thank you to my very generous Patreon supporters. I will see you again soon. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much for watching.